right? I got Fredo arguing with Sandinista. Our great president is threatening to call in the National Guard. And Cuomo saying that he's going to replace de Blasio if he doesn't straighten this out tonight. And who's in the middle? The NYPD. A great group of men and women fighting a fight for us New Yorkers that basically we're on the sidelines in this gig, right? I'm over here on my couch, and in my neighborhood, I'm in an integrated neighborhood, white, black, all walks of life, and I don't see no issues over here, right? And we talk about this, and we've already discussed the vectors in reference to Black Lives Matter, which is basically their cop shootings, right? They've called for cop killings. Now, I know I'm working on that, Rod. We're gonna. Yo, 49, I'm working on it. That's the next thing. You're right, my brother. Thank you for that feedback. You know, it's a work in progress. It's free. So I'm working out. Thank you, my brother. We're working out the kinks. All right, now let's go to this aggregate. I want to check out. I want to go to this aggregate. And I saw on the aggregate these cops. Absolutely. Thank you, my brother, 49. Unfortunately, there are some cops dropping to a knee. I don't get that. I don't get that, bro. I'm sorry. Right? And now we got 4 police officers shot in St. Louis. This is Black Lives Matter. They shot police officers before. In Dallas. This is Black Lives Matter. Right? So we got those vectors. Retired cop killed on Facebook Live. 1 shot in the head in the Vegas Strip. They're shooting police officers. This is crazy. This is insanity. Black Lives Matter got those vectors. Plus, like we've said, they're in Iran. They've attended police brutality conferences in the United States in Iran. Because Iran's objective is to take down America. They've done this since 2015, where they've flown in Black Lives Matter activists and educated them to the ways of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Then they left, came back into America, and integrated into America. So Black Lives Matter is not a good group. They call for the killing of cops, and they're working with the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is an enemy of the United States. Very unfortunate, Boris. You're right. You're right, Boris. I agree. It's terrible. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Now, so you're right, Boris. So we got that going on with Black Lives Matter. Then we got this Antifa group. So we got the black group, and now we got the white group. So it's a black-white group going on, right? But we got this white group at the U.S.-Mexican border an FBI report trying to buy weapons from the Mexican drug cartel. Hezbollah has a stockpile in the U.S.-Mexican border. How did we notice? U.S. versus Jamal Youssef case. So, in all intents and purposes, Antifa is working with the Mexican drug cartel, who's working with Hezbollah. So basically, we see Hezbollah, Shiite terrorism arm of Iran, achieving their objectives with the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They're at the U.S.-Mexican border. We know this since at least 2011, when we got the assassination attempt of the Saudi ambassador to the United States at D.C. from the U.S.-Mexican border. And how do we know this? They bribed $100,000 thinking it was a Mexican drug cartel member, and the Quds Force General Soleimani, the dude that our great president whacked, bribed a drug enforcement agent. So we got Hezbollah, right, with Mexican drug cartel, and now we got Antifa, the anti-fascist group that is working with Black Lives Matter. So in order to have a zero footprint, like we said last night, Hezbollah is throwing out Antifa, the white boys basically, and Black Lives Matter. The black-white coalition to cause disintegration, destruction of property, destruction of jobs, destruction of businesses inside the United States, over 20 cities. While we're in shutdown. Crazy. We're in a pandemic shutdown. This is insane. So this is what we're looking at over here, right? Hezbollah is able to stay at the U.S.-Mexican border, and that, yeah, right, Coach, and also the northern border, where we know the most Iranian refugees fleeing Iran for asylum, with asylum in Canada. And they're coming in to the northern border, right? So we got the southern border and the northern border. So for all intents and purposes, I'll go back to the vectors. I always do. Before I go to these vectors, like last night, we have a little more information to add to this. According to some reports out of the OANN network, claiming that there were pipe bombs found in D.C. near the Korean War Memorial. That's one. In addition, there's already been cop killings. 4 cops were shot in St. Louis. Black Lives Matter, that's how they roll. There were, in addition, this David Dorn, I think he was a Vegas cop. Unfortunately, according to one of our viewers, I think he passed on. It's terrible. Terrible. I don't know. Dirty cops. Listen, Toy Factory. The numbers don't jive with everybody's assessment of what's going on between the police and the inner cities. The numbers don't jive, first of all. They had Ron Carrick on Fox News, and they had this African-American broadcaster. He's a fabulous broadcaster, and Larry Elder, claiming that only 9 African-Americans got unarmed, and only 9 unarmed African-Americans got shot in this past year, according to the data of the 1,000+ shootings. In addition, the numbers are that of the, what up 77? What's up, my brother? Are you one of my ABC listeners, 77 WBC listeners? What's up, my brother? In addition, according to the numbers I've seen on the internet, I don't know. The shootings of police officers, 42% are from black suspects. So it's crazy. What up, 77? This is crazy. The numbers don't jive with this so-called protest, which we know it's no longer a protest. This is riots all over the place. As much as the broadcast is, this has been riots since for days now. So the reporting is way off, right? These are riots we're looking at over here. These are people, and we have weak, unfortunately, we have weak politicians. I go to, I'm in New York, so, governor, and, we have the Fredos in the state, and we got you're entitled to your opinion, man. Just don't curse. And don't get perverse, and you don't have to agree. And then we got the mayor, who's a rat. He's a Sandinista, and they just let these people run roughshod instead of quarantining the protest, forcing them to stay in an area and let them shout their protest. They allowed them to go all over the city of Manhattan, destroying property, shooting cops, and defacing property and destroying businesses. Disgusting what's going on in the city, all over the country. And our great President Donald John Trump got the National Guard in D.C. There's the National Guard, I think, in the last time I checked, I think this in we do, Stringer, you're right. The most political rats are in New York. We do. That is true. What up, 813? They're not even protesters, right? They're not even protesters, right? They're not protesters. So we're not sheep. We don't get manipulated. Everybody else does, right? Because of 4 cops, one was a moron, and 3 other cops watched. Exactly, 813. We ain't sheep. You want to know what's going on? You come to the Frankie Russo show. You want to get manipulated? Watch mainstream media, and you'll get manipulated. And they run to the streets like this has been going on. They lied about hands up, don't shoot. That didn't happen. Trayvon Martin was another lie. I mean, this goes on and on the lies. If you want to go follow that stuff, go right ahead. If you got nothing else better to do with yourself, you go follow the way all that stuff is reported. Watch CNN. Watch all of the lying network, which is basically manipulating, right? 813. That's what it is. But you come here, I'm on my couch, and I'm ahead of this thing, right? I got an email because we believe on the outside, the perimeter going into America, we believe that this assault on America, right? We talk about a human bioweapon, basically the cover up of this virus by the Chinese Communist Party. Then you got Iran involved, and Russia is complicit, right? And they get into America from over the Atlantic Ocean because we analyze the ground. So to go from Moscow, so we go from Eastern Asia, which is Wuhan, Shanghai, and we got Hong Kong, which is right near Taiwan, and then from there we go into Tehran, Iran, which is West Asia, and then we go up and we're in Moscow, and we got the vectors, Marwan Air, and then we got you could take a train from Sahid in Iran, from Tehran, and even with 600,000 Sunni Iranians, but they'll take Marwan Air, which is owned by the Khomeini, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they're in Moscow. They're hanging out with Yassin al-Suri, Mohammad Jodaki from Hezbollah, Quds Force with Khalil Harab. The IRGC strategizing. They jump on Marwan Air, And now they're in the next Syria in the Western Hemisphere. They're in Caracas, Venezuela, Margarita Island, and they're getting ready now with the INDEX, the SAME, the naturalization immigration agencies. With these, they give them Venezuelan citizenship, and then they get visas, U.S. visas. So either they're in, it's crazy. Either they take the plane, the Mon One airplane from Caracas, and fly right into Canada. Trudeau, that's for all intents and purposes, I don't have the incontrovertible truth, but man, he looks like Castro. That conceivably is Castro's son. He looks like Castro, like sick. The resemblance is sick. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. He loves the Islamists. He loves the radical Islamists. He gives them millions of dollars because they were complaining about their treatment in Gitmo, and he gave them an $8 million reward. One of the Islamists, Bador. That's Trudeau. Maybe he is Castro's son. I don't know, but they look alike, a lot alike. As Obama is he's not from Hawaii. Obama, right? With Michelle Michael, who knows? And those kids aren't theirs either. So who knows who these people are, right? Let alone Maduro. Maduro's from Bogota, Colombia. He's not even Venezuelan, right? And he's running the Venezuelan oil reserves. He's getting oil. They have to get oil from Iran. That's how bad the criminals are running the country in Venezuela into the ground, like Syria. You got Russia there, North Korea, China. I mean, Iran is there, and they have a safe haven in Margarita Island. And from there, they make their moves, right? They go to Canada, they take the plane, or they go through Bogota, and we got 2 Hezbollah terror cells inside of Colombia. One has been there since the 90s. And that's how they infiltrated the United States from Colombia through the Panama Canal, we talk about this all the time, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, and then they go into Mexico, right? And then from Mexico, you got Guadalajara, Monterrey, and now they're going into San Diego, and we got the Mandalay Bay vectors. Which is crazy, right? And that puts us, so from the Mandalay Bay vectors, just to give a little recap from last night, from the Mandalay Bay vectors, we're going into, we have the Black Lives Matter Antifa hit in LA. The LA National Guard deployed for the first time since 1992. Thank you, Black Lives Matter. Thank you, Antifa. From there, this is the vectors that we talked about, right, last night. The San Diego, this is the Mandalay Bay vectors, and I'm going to show you them in a minute. So from there, we go to Mandalay Bay, Vegas. So we're in there. That's where in Vegas, rioters throw Molotov cocktails at police, at property, at police cars. And then from there, we're going into Salt Lake City, Utah, where demonstrators spray paint vulgarities on a police precinct, right? So from San Diego, those are the cities that are under siege, and that's how the vectors move from the U.S.-Mexican border, where we have Hezbollah working very closely with the Mexican drug cartel. And Iran is achieving its goal of taking down the United States economy, reducing America, and slowing down our great President Donald John Trump for revenge for the hit on Soleimani, for the sanctions that President Trump's been very hard on Iran, and rightly so, right? So he put the hammer on Iran, so Iran's retaliating from the U.S.-Mexican border. And these vectors have been going on well before President Trump got there, right? The 9/11 hijackers with Anwar al-Awlaki, the 9/11 Imam, And then we got the Mexican drug cartel using the same vectors from the U.S.-Mexican border, from the poppy fields of Mexico to the streets of New York. Very clear, right? So just to give you the idea on how this thing is moving, right? So from San Diego, they're going like that, right? They're hitting. So we look at these vectors as pipelines. So you, for example, Antifa, according to an FBI, the anti-fascist group that's working with Black Lives Matter, from the U.S.-Mexican border, there's an FBI report claiming that Antifa's been to the U.S.-Mexican border trying to get weapons through the Mexican drug cartel. So that brings into play now Hezbollah, the Shiite terrorism arm of Iran, the Mexican drug cartel on the U.S.-Mexican border, arming Antifa and Black Lives Matter, right? So now you got a white-black terrorist group destroying 20 plus cities. What up, Happy Camper? And if you don't believe me, look at London, look at Germany, look at Europe, right? This the Black Lives Matter is in with Antifa is all over Europe. It's there. London and other parts of Europe. Well, I'm going to talk about what I was sent by some Iranian nationals that are against the present regime. They sent me a video from an Iranian official, and I'm going to play it, and we're going to translate it. But these vectors, I mean, you know, I'm talking about vectors that have been here since the early 2000s. These are over 20 years old, and they were published. We plotted them in 17 for the to try to analyze Mandalay Bay and what happened over there, and then the New York Post published them in February of 2019, claiming that the Mexican drug cartel is using these same vectors to smuggle drugs into the streets of New York, right? So we have Antifa, the anti-fascist group. So these vectors were here before Trump got in. And Trump's been trying to blunt these things for some time. That's why he's got Joint Chiefs Melly involved. He's got Mexican troops over there. He's got the Mexican government sending troops on the... But they're here. They're in here already. Not in my hood, Underwood. I don't walk around to find out, honestly. It runs deep, Happy Camper. It does. So, right? Because basically these vectors are pipelines. And you have like the way we presented them, for example, right? Here's the Mandalay Bay. This is where Vegas, they had upheavals in Vegas, right? Mandalay Bay. So these are Mandalay Bay vectors. These were plotted at 17. Mandalay Bay is here. According to the local, there was they had Stephen Paddock was supposedly a lone wolf, and we know that's not true, right? Based on the vectors. So Stephen Paddock had a home in Reno, a home in Mesquite. So we had 3 crime scenes. So the vectors, we came up with a 4th crime scene, the U.S.-Mexican border. So we believe that's the crime scene for these atrocities of the destruction of the 22 cities, the 22 plus cities that Black Lives Matter and Antifa are hitting, right? This is real, right? This is real. It's no accident that Antifa is on the U.S.-Mexican border trying to get weapons. And there were instances prior, well, 92, you're entitled to your opinion. Oh, I'm brainwashed. Okay, you're entitled to your opinion, 240. But Antifa's on, according to an FBI report, Antifa's on the U.S.-Mexican border buying weapons from the Mexican drug cartel. So they might as well say they're buying weapons from Hezbollah, right? With that going on, Black Lives Matter shooting cops. They shot cops before they shot cops here in these last episodes, these last few days, where they shot cops in St. Louis. They've been shooting cops and calling for cop killings for a long time, right? Now we got Black Lives Matter activists going to Iran, being flown in by the Islamic Republic of Iran, where they're hosting police brutality conferences inside of Iran. I'm nuts. Frankie Russo's a whack job. Is that what you're saying there, B. Davis? You think I'm nuts? I'm lying. I tell you what, are you buying a computer? Son, are you buying a computer? Put in Black Lives Matter. B. Davis, put in Black Lives Matter. Just go online, JM. Put in Black Lives Matter and put Iranian conference in 2015. They've attended more than one. They're being flown in by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And guess who? Guess who? And guess who? Guess who Iran loves? The Farrakhan. The anti-Jew, the anti-Semite Farrakhan. They love the Khomeini, too. Does the Farrakhan. 240. Go to the internet, put in Black Lives Matter, and put in Iranian conference. It's called New Horizons Conference. Police brutality in the United States. And then I got this, just to confirm this a step further, I got a video from some Iranian, this chick Pei. She's a very nice, I don't know her. I just know her through the social media. She's an Iranian national that loves her country, and they're trying to get rid of the mullahs. And, you know, the mullahs are going to, the mullahs, well, whatever. You're entitled to your opinion, Bishop. Russo, you know, I like Alex Jones, but I got vectors, son. And my vectors, I'm close. I'm going to give you my disclaimer. Outside looking in, I'm on my couch in Brooklyn. Outside looking in, no U.S. Congressional Oversight Committee, no International Atomic Energy Agency, no Joint Chiefs of Staff, no National Security Council. No access to classified docs, nor do I know anyone who has access to classified docs. Court papers, judges' decisions, peer-reviewed journal articles, and well-sourced, well-researched open-source articles. What we're searching for is a quasi-model, quote-unquote, statistical significance, and all likelihood, no probability, look for trends, differences, and patterns in the data, and then we conceivably reach reasonable, responsible conclusions. And by the way, we believe our conclusions are close. Classified information is the mean. We're within the standard deviation of the mean. The Russo disclaimer. I'm over here, right? So, first of all, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter have been involved in shooting cops before this last episode of the destruction of 22 plus cities, states, right? Black Lives Matter. Right? So has that happened? Yes. We know of 4 cop shootings in St. Louis. That's a fact. 4 cop shootings in St. Louis, and there's one in Las Vegas apparently, and there's claiming that one of the in the room claiming that the guy passed on, right? That's the first thing. Now go into your computer and put in. Well, wait, Gary, wait. Before I get into Antifa and the weapons. So go online and put in Black Lives Matter and Iran and the New Horizons Conference, and it'll come up. It's online. the Islamic Republic of Iran, Mohammed Javad Zarif admitted to be working with the Open Society. You know who Mohammed Javad Zarif is? And this is being reported by some very responsible reporters from the Washington Free Beacon. Mohammed Javad Zarif is the former Iranian ambassador to the UN, the former executive director of the Levy Foundation that was involved in the 650 Fifth Avenue case, funneling money from the streets of New York. Oh, please. Funneling money from the streets of New York to the weapons of mass destruction in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And Mohammed Zarif was involved with the John Kerry and the fake Iranian nuke deal, right? So, B. Davis, you're entitled to your opinion. The vectors are very clear. We are close. We are within. I don't have access to classified information, but we're within the standard deviation of this classified information. We're close. Cops have been shot. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is in Iran now. I got this video by this Iranian official claiming, encouraging, watching this unrest in America and telling the Iranian people that we have to go to, that the Iranian people have to go and infiltrate. He's saying it in Farsi, and it's translated in English. With regard to the American people, if their media fabric and oppressing structures loosen a little bit, America is the kind of country that will disintegrate quickly. I am not saying this. I've traveled to America 2 or 3 times. I talked with different types. There are layers of hatred, alienation, estrangement. However, the regime controls everything through the media. Believe me, if this loosens a little, the entire structure will disintegrate. 1% of the pressure we endured in 2009 and on other occasions, they will disintegrate America. There is hatred of various kinds there. We're not taking advantage of it. We're unable to do it, and he's telling the young people to send out. We send out several thousands of young Iranians, hook up with the American women, and infiltrate our culture. This is right on a website. I got this from some of the this chick Pei, who's against the mullahs that are controlling Iran. Now, we don't want, the mullahs are going to collapse, but we don't want the Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi, to take over. Well, just look at the video, B. Davis. Who the hell are you? We don't want this guy to take over because we believe he's the next Adolf Hitler. Reza Pahlavi. That's who they want to take over. We've been tracking him for over 20 years. He's the Shah's son. So, well, there you go. They're working with, there you go, because they're in Iran, they're working with the mullahs. And who's there with them? The Farrakhan, okay? So, and that's the Palestinian Authority, Hamas branch of the Black Congressional Caucus. That's the Maxine Waters, that's the Adrian Carsons, that's the Congresswoman Omar, the Congresswoman Tlaib, that's Keith Ellerson. Keith Ellerson is in control. What up? Keith Ellerson is in control of the case in Minnesota, right? Minneapolis, that's little Mogadishu. The Somali refugees are over there. You know how many cases of stealthy, they have a refugee camp over here. Well, B. Davis, you don't make sense. I said I've been tracking because I bought the book I bought this book, Reza Pahlavi, I bought this book. Hey, Ryan, you ain't coming into my room talking like that, bro. So, you got warned. I'll block you. I bought this book in 2002. It's already almost 20 years. Right? And when I was in Cali, I used to go to Cali every month almost. And this is a publication, June 6th, 2003. Yeah, London. Yeah, London's got Sharia law courts, right? Heir to Iran's peacock throne hopes to draw veil over era of Ayatollahs. And this is Reza Pahlavi, the next Adolf Hitler. We don't want him to take over. You're right, Davis. You're right. Whoever you are. You know who I am, son. I don't need a moderator. I do it myself. I throw him out. So we got an Iranian official telling the young people of Iran to go to America, marry the American chicks, and infiltrate America and their culture. And that's how they'll take over Iran. That's how they'll take over America. So we got the U.S.-Mexican border. They got Hezbollah over there. I got a whiteboard. B. Davis, you're probably a 12-year-old kid for all I know. Right? ISIS. Greenwood. ISIS. Right. ISIS. So they're ISIS. Exactly. Infiltrators. Exactly. From the U.S.-Mexican border. But this is perfect for Hezbollah. Because with the asymmetrical warfare that Soleimani was purporting, and he got whacked, right? Zero footprint going back to Hezbollah. They throw out Black Lives Matter and Antifa. White boys and Black Lives Matter. It's crazy, right? And then plus now we found out they have 5,000 SA-24s, Soviet man-pads, according to Reuters, held by the Venezuelan military. So Maduro, who's born in Bogota, Colombia, is now taken over, has basically turned Venezuela into the next Syria, right? So you got from the three vectors coming from, they have new, right? You got man-pads, you got asymmetrical warfare now. You got asymmetrical warfare on steroids, right? And the Obama-Clinton crime family gave the Al-Qaeda in Libya 20,000 Soviet man-pads when they couped Gaddafi, because Gaddafi was hoarding them. Right? Soros now, right? Greenwood, great point. Soros, the Open Society, according to Mohammed Javad Zarif, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Iranian nuke deal negotiator, right? Quds admitted to be working with Soros, the Open Society. So we got Iran involved with George Soros. Marwan Air, which is owned by the Khomeini, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, flying 55 times, according to Secretary of State of Pompeo. According to the BBC, what up there, Mike? Spreading, according to the BBC, spreading the virus. The human, right? Exactly. So we got the Marwan Air, the IRGC, the Khomeini's airline spreading the human bioweapon. Thank you, Wagon Fire, for the mention. So exactly, Greenwoods, exactly. So the whole idea, Iran, because of the hit on Soleimani, right? Iran hated us from Jump Street, right? But the hit on Soleimani, it just, the hatred's gone through the roof. So not only did they strike in Iraq, there was already intel coming out of the U.S.-Mexican border and the northern border that Iranian nationals with explosives are coming from Mexico into California. That was in January. So now, and that's why President Trump got in the Joint Chiefs involved on the borders but these vectors have been going on before Trump took over. Right? We've already had 1993 World Trade Center bombing, the horrific hit on the World Trade Center, and the vectors going up and down from San Diego to San Antonio. And, we plotted these vectors, right? So, and we'll show you, these are pipelines. So we take the vectors, right? These are pipelines. These are logistical, technological pipelines. These are human asset pipelines. These are weapons pipelines, right? So, for example, from San Antonio, which you go right into the U.S.-Mexican border, there's also El Paso, Texas. There was a terror cell in El Paso, Texas, with a FBI asset, and this guy Adin Sharike Juma from Florida by way of Saudi. He was a Saudi national, and he was going back and forth when he was in El Paso, Texas, and he ended up getting whacked in Pakistan, I think, in 2011 in a raid. He was going back and forth. He was wanted by the FBI big time. Back and forth. Mexico, United States, Mexico, United States, Mexico, United States. He changed his identity to Javier Robles. He became a Spaniard. So these are the kind of things and the kind of transactions that are going on off in the U.S.-Mexican border, right? So just to look, here's some of the that we talked about last night. This is what's going on in our country, America, right? Here's the vectors that Trump is trying to blunt. Here's where Trump is trying to blunt, right? So we're going in from Mexico, San Antonio, Houston, and then we go into New Orleans, Louisiana, and we go up. And from New Orleans, Louisiana, we're going through Macon County, Alabama. That's where a jihadi training camp was, alongside of Atlanta, Georgia. And then from there, we're going into Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where a Hezbollah terror cell was in the 90s. And then from there, we're going to D.C. That's where Anwar al-Awlaki, the 9/11 Imam, was meeting up with the 9/11 hijackers. Then we're going to Philadelphia. That's the Philadelphia Hamas conference. And then from there, we go into New York City, the streets of New York, right? And that the 9/11 hijackers, they blew up the buildings. So these vector here is how the Islamists, Antifa, Black Lives Matter is moving through these states. And look at the way the vectors roll. You come in from Mexico, right? So from Mexico, you go into San Antonio, like we did the Mandalay Bay. You're going to San Antonio. Houston, Texas, not far from Dallas. In Dallas, man attacked and stomped on by a group after defending a store with a large sword. So that's right, Kuss. I haven't seen your messages, Dunk. So if you follow, because basically these vectors are position vectors. Thank you, Razorback. These vectors are, thank you for the retweets, my brother. These vectors are position vectors. They're basically a train, right? So this is how they've been moving through. If you go to my website, the New York Post, we plotted these vectors in October of 17 in response to the Mandalay Bay and we got Mandalay Bay. The fourth crime scene was the U.S.-Mexican border, right? So the vectors from the poppy fields of Mexico were published in the New York Post almost a year and a half after they're serious, Syria. This is serious. This is true. I'm going to put it out, and then I'll read the blogs, Dunk. So here's the vectors, right? This is a train, right? This is a train. How did the Islamists move through Europe? The trains, right? This train is a pipeline, a human assets pipeline, a logistical, technological pipeline, a weapons pipeline, right? So from this pipeline is how they support the strongholds. In Dallas, where Antifa and Black Lives Matter are stomping on they're attacking people in Dallas, Texas, and they got stomped on by a group that, after defending a store with a large sword. This was in Dallas, Texas. So from Houston, the pipeline starts from San Antonio to Houston. From Houston, they go into New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, from New Orleans, Louisiana, which is not far, you got Ron DeSantis called the National Guard for Tampa. So that's a stronghold over there for the Black Lives Matter Antifa group. Then from there, you got from New Orleans, Louisiana, you go into Macon County, Alabama, which is alongside of Atlanta, not far from Atlanta, Georgia. What quadrant are my vectors in? Okay, interesting question. Depending upon where you are, right? Obviously. So if you're in Houston and you're going into New Orleans, Louisiana, 90 degrees east, 90 degrees east, right? Boom. You're in New Orleans. It's parallel to the Cartesian coordinate system, and you're in New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans, Louisiana, from there, you're not far from Tampa. You're not far from Tampa, Florida. That's a stronghold is over there. A stronghold over there. Black Lives Matter, Antifa's there. And if you go from there, you go to Macon County, Alabama. There was already a jihadi training camp in there that, I'm telling you, Cuts, this has been going on for over 20 years. In 2000, Anwar al-Awlaki, Muhammad Atta, Al-Madar, Al-Hamzi were running up and down these vectors, the 9/11 hijackers, for almost a year before they put the planes into the buildings in New York. Horrific hit. Right? So the vector from Houston into, absolutely, Porky. We analyzed this on the map there, Panhandle. Is this a good? Yeah, it is. It's a good fellow thing. You're right. So from Houston, Texas, we're in New Orleans, Louisiana, right? Parallel to the Cartesian coordinate system. It's like from Baghdad to Damascus. From Baghdad to Damascus, the 180 degrees west. This is 90 degrees. Well, not 90. I'm sorry, not 90. It's flat, right? It's not 90 degrees. 90 degrees. No, it's flat, right? Zero. It's just parallel to the Cartesian coordinate system from New Orleans, Louisiana to I mean, from Houston to New Orleans, Louisiana, right? So now you're in New Orleans, Louisiana, and you got a military stronghold, a militia-like stronghold, because we've been invaded, right? Porky, it's straight, flat, right? There's no theta, right? So it goes from the origin. Okay, let's say the origin is 00 is Houston, Texas, and now we're going to New Orleans, Louisiana. No theta, flat, east, like Baghdad to Damascus going west, 180 degrees, right? This is 0 going into New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, from New Orleans, Louisiana, there's a militia-like stronghold in with the Black Lives Matter and Antifa inside of Tampa, Florida. So the pipeline, human assets, right? Weapons, logistical and technical support on this infiltration of our country from the U.S.-Mexican border. 0 footprint by Hezbollah. Where is this coming from? You got white boys, you got white boys, and you got Black Lives Matter. This is not coming from Hezbollah and the Mexican drug cartel, right? From New Orleans, Louisiana, we're going into Macon County, Alabama. That's where the federales shut down a jihadi training camp over there. That was put up by Siraj Wahhaj. The 1990, he was an unindicted co-conspirator in 1993 World Trade Center bombing. His son started a training camp over there. The federales shut that down. In Macon County, Alabama, we're not far from Atlanta, Georgia. That's where another problem is, right? Cops suffer significant injuries after being hit by an ATV. So there's a militia-like stronghold. Absolutely, cuz. God bless you. So from Macon County, Alabama, right? The train that started from San Antonio goes into Macon County, Alabama. This pipeline. So say they got Hezbollah and the Mexican drug cartels got, for 20 cities to 20 states, they have 20 operatives riding on this train. 2 operatives get off with 10 AR-15s each. 5 AR-15s each. I like man-pads, but, that's, my gig. So they're in Macon County, Alabama. There's a militia stronghold in Atlanta, Georgia. Antifa and Black Lives Matter. From Antifa, right? They got AR-15s, AK-47s. Thank you, Patriot. The 2 operatives from Hezbollah and the Mexican drug cartel, right? For all we know, they're white boys, right? So it doesn't, 0 footprint going back to Hezbollah and absolutely. Absolutely, they're working together. They're absolutely working together there, Sam. Absolutely, Porky. They are snowflakes. You're right in the room, unfortunately. So off of Macon County, Alabama, you got Atlanta, Georgia, right? There's a militia. There's a Antifa, Black Lives Matter stronghold in Atlanta, Georgia, right? For whatever reason, you blame it on the leadership over there, right? Well, that's ridiculous, JM. That's really ridiculous. That's bad. Ridiculous, son. So from Macon County, Alabama, we go into Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte, North Carolina. Whatever. From Charlotte, North Carolina, right? we're going into D.C. And D.C., you know what happened over there. 50 Secret Service got injured. 50 Secret Service got injured. See, JM, you can make all the mistakes. You can make all the statements you want. You're whatever. I don't know who you are, but the vectors and the way they're put together, basically, it's based upon the infrastructure and past and present activity from the infrastructure. If you have any understanding, the vectors don't lie. And we have the geopolitical infrastructure inside of America as well as throughout the world. And we're in the frequentistic domain where activities have been going on for 10 years, 20 years from the same domain. So what are you talking about, bro? You don't. I mean, I don't think you understand how the plane works, right, Porky? We're in the frequentistic domain, because, right? These cats don't watch exactly. You know what I'm saying? So you got a guy like JM, you know, ridiculous, right? So let me ask you a question, JM, right? I got a San Diego terror cell. Look it up. Anwar al-Awlaki, Muhammad Atta, Abdel Sator Sheikh, Al-Madar Al-Hamzi in San Diego in 2000. I got a terror cell in San Antonio. Who has a mosque who's a Muslim cleric? Who is a Muslim cleric in San Diego in 2000? Iran. There you go, brother. Right? Anwar al-Awlaki, the 9/11 Imam. You know, the FBI asset, the Farrakhan, right? There you go, right? So that's a vector, right? That's real, right? San Antonio, the same thing. So how is Al-Hamzi and Al-Madar, when Anwar al-Awlaki left San Diego, the 9/11 Imam, Anwar al-Awlaki, he goes to Virginia, D.C. How are they getting there? How are they getting there to visit Anwar al-Awlaki? They're taking the vector like I'm showing you. This is how they're getting to D.C. from San Antonio. See, because you don't understand. You don't understand how the geopolitical world works. We're in a frequentistic domain. Scientists that use the frequentistic domain, you got repetitive experiments. And when you're able to repeat an experiment and you have statistical significance and the data falls within, all the data falls within the standard deviation of the mean, you got science. So when you got vectors going from San Diego and you got an FBI terror cell, an FBI asset inside of San Diego meeting Anwar al-Awlaki, the 9/11 Imam, while they're going to flight school to blow up America, right? Because now they're going, Anwar al-Awlaki left San Diego. Right, Porky? Now he's in Virginia. So how is, from a San Antonio terror cell, how are they getting to D.C. to meet Anwar al-Awlaki? I got to spell this out for you, son. They're taking this vector here. This happened in 2000. We go in October of 17, and we got Mandalay Bay getting hit with weapons coming from Reno and Mesquite. Fourth crime scene. They're in the southern border. Look at the vector for Mandalay Bay. Right? Look at the vectors down here. This is Mexico. How do you think the Islamists are getting the weapons? Where do you think they're getting these weapons from? U.S. versus Jamal Youssef case, Hezbollah's got a stockpile at the U.S.-Mexican border. So here, Stephen Paddock goes down, buys 100 AK-47s, 50 AK-47s, goes up 25 in Reno, 25 in Mesquite. There you go, Cuz, right? Then, before the hit was October 1st, 2017, what does he do? He checks into Mandalay Bay. He's got human assets waiting for him in Reno. He takes the 25 AK-47s and the human assets, and they go into his room in Mandalay Bay. This is before October 1st, 2017, when they did that horrific hit in Mandalay Bay. So from here now, he goes into Mesquite in his other house, and he's got another 25 AK-47s with human assets, and they go into, and they build this military-like stronghold, this militia-like stronghold inside of Mandalay Bay before they did the hit. This is how these are pipelines. Human asset pipelines, weapons pipelines, logistical support pipelines. That's what these vectors are. They start off as position vectors. How do you measure terror? How do you measure radical Islamic terror? I don't know. You don't. Newtons? No. They're position vectors. Meters. Distance, right? And we use displacement because we analyze the ground. Now, we stumbled onto this vector while analyzing the Mandalay Bay shooting, right? So now we got this vector used in 2000 by 9/11 hijackers. And the New York Post, February, it's on my website, scroll down my website, the New York Post claims that the same vectors that were used by the 9/11 hijackers and the 9/11 Iman, right, were now being used by the Mexican drug cartel to smuggle the drugs from the poppy fields of Mexico to the streets of New York. So that's two. So we're in the frequentistic domain. If the 9/11 hijackers are using these vectors, which they did, right? Juarez, there it is, Porky. There it is. There isn't much more to say, right? And Al-Awlaki, Muhammad Atta had a terrorist cell inside of Florida. So if we're in a frequentistic domain. If the 9/11 hijackers are using these vectors in 2000, right, Porky? If the Mexican drug cartel are using the same vectors to get to the streets of New York with the drugs in 19, what do you think these Antifa, Black Lives Matter militia in 22 plus states, what vectors you think they're using? Trump's been trying to blunt these things since he's been in office. But we got cats like you, JM, that's been trying to stop our great president. They hit us badly over here. We've been hit badly. And thanks to the House Democrats and the Democratic governors and mayors, they've contributed to allowing these militias to form inside. They form these pockets, these military-like strongholds. And then you got the likes of Open Society, Soros. You got China in one way or another offering, hey, China and North Korea are smuggling missile and rocket components over Chinese airspace into Tehran, Iran. And that's how they run. So we're in a frequentistic, I don't know anything about statistics, but this is what you call a frequentistic domain. So in other words, we look for repetitive. So in the world of science, I'm an amateur scientist, but in the world of science, in order for something to become science, you got to be able to repeat it. And the results have to be within the standard deviation. It has to be statistically significant. So we're looking at repetitive behavior. Repetitive behavior. You got 9/11. You got the land bridge, right, Paul? You got the land bridge from Tehran to Baghdad, Damascus, to the borders of Israel, to Beirut, Lebanon, with 100,000 rockets underground, Hezbollah, more than any rockets NATO country has above ground. Perfect example of how Iran moves. Hezbollah, Iran moves. Now they're in Moscow. They fly into They fly into Caracas, Margarita Island. They arm up, money, weapons, training, human assets on Margarita Island. Hezbollah terror cell. Hezbollah terror cells, and two of them in Colombia, one since the 90s. And we know that by Charlotte, North Carolina, which is part of the vector from San Antonio, from the poppy fields of Mexico. There was a Hezbollah terror cell, and one of them came from Venezuela in '92. So we're in the frequentistic domain, right? There you go, Porky. There you go, right, cuz? So anybody, you see, who knows who this JM cat is, right? But people that, like Porky and others that have been stationed out in Iraq, they know what Russo's talking about, right? This is real. This is real deal. These vectors are real, right? These vectors, this is a reconnaissance geopolitical analysis, right, Porky? So now, we're in D.C., and we know what happened to D.C., right? Because of the weak leadership, they've allowed Antifa and Black Lives Matter to form these militias, these pockets inside these states. Absolutely, because we're close, right? So 50, it was so bad in D.C. that 50 Secret Service, right? Because 50 Secret Service got injured, and our great president got sent to the bunker. I don't want to talk about Floyd. To me, Floyd is, you have 4 cops that are morons. The 4 cops don't make up the entire police force. BLM is a terrorist organization. They kill cops, and they've already met with the world's largest state sponsor of terror, Iran. They've been flown in by Iran. Absolutely, Porky, they are funny because they don't know, right? This is not, JM, this is not about what you're saying. That's right, they can't. Because, right, Trump is trying to blunt them. That's what the wall's supposed to do. Trump's got 180 miles of the wall down there, but he needs more. And you got people like Pelosi and people like JM coming in here, and they just either they don't want, it's crazy, right? So from DC now, we're in DC, right? And then from DC, we go into Philadelphia. Not far from Philadelphia is Ohio. That's where Cincinnati, there's a stronghold, Antifa, Black Lives Matter stronghold in Cincinnati. And has the worst unrest since the 2001 riots. Crazy, right? I'm telling you, because for real. So from Philadelphia, now why do we say Philadelphia? So we went from DC. What up, Frank? We went from DC to Philadelphia. In the 1990s, does anybody know about the Holy Land Foundation trial? In the 1990s was the famous Hamas conference. This is real deal Holyfield stuff now. You got Niwad Awad, Omar Ahmad, the founders of CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations. Exactly, because they're in Philadelphia in the 90s. So now we got Hamas there, and we know we're in the 90s, right? And we know in 2019, the Mexican drug cartel is using the same vector from DC into Philadelphia to smuggle the drugs into New York City, right? In Philadelphia, there's been a lot of unrest over there. So there's a pocket, a militia, Antifa, Black Lives Matter pocket inside of exactly the same vectors inside of Philadelphia. And so the train stops, off pops an operative, money, weapons, and training to support this militia, this Antifa, Black Lives Matter militia, and then it goes into Ohio to support the Cincinnati, to support the militia, the Antifa, Black Lives Matter militia over there. In addition, operatives are in Chicago from Philadelphia or from Cincinnati, Ohio. Now the train leaves Philadelphia now and goes into New York. And you got the Cuomo, de Blasio regime over there, and it's crazy, right? So from New York, you could go into Cleveland, Ohio as well, which is another Antifa, Black Lives Matter militia. This is organized. This is an organized attack on our infrastructure, which has already been compromised since the 1990s. If you understand anything, absolutely, cuz if you understand anything, JM, of a concerted, organized attack on an infrastructure, and you understand the geopolitical landscape, and if you look at the vectors, like, for example, let's look at Iran and how Iran moves through terrain that they know. And we go to the land bridge. Right, so that vector, AC, you're talking about Mohammed al-Sharami in Florida. Now, Florida is a problem with the Islamists, right? But that's another discussion. We'll do it this week, because I'm just focusing on these vectors, on what's going on with these 22 plus states, with the Antifa. He is a snowflake, Porky, you're right. He's a snowflake like you wouldn't believe, JM. Big time. And you got COVID-19. That's it, Mac Razorback. There it is. COVID-19 is part of this hit, right? The COVID-19, we've concluded, we believe we're close, that the COVID-19 is a human bioweapon, right? The COVID-19 is a human bioweapon. What are you talking about? Police brutality. What are you talking about? George Floyd is the exception, not the rule. You're talking about hands up, don't shoot? It didn't happen. Trayvon Martin was a ruse. George Floyd is the exception, not the rule. There you go, Jimbo. The Wuhan virus is a bioweapon. And it was created through the cover-up of China, Iran, and Russia. 5G rollout, that hasn't been substantiated. We'll see how that plays out. So, there you go, Porky, right? So now, we're in New York. We've addressed all of absolutely, cuz. We've addressed all of the Black Lives Matter, Antifa pockets, militia-like pockets inside these various states along the vector from San Antonio to Houston, New Orleans, Louisiana, Macon County, Alabama, alongside Atlanta, Georgia, to Charlotte, North Carolina, up through D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, and the pockets along this pipeline, and how it feeds these pockets, these Antifa, Black Lives Matter pockets, and how it goes all the way, it stretches all the way out to Chicago, Ohio, Cincinnati, Chicago, Illinois, Nashville, Tennessee, from so you got Alabama. So from D.C., basically, it's not far. Nashville, Tennessee from D.C. as well, right? So the other side to this thing, the northern border. So from Caracas, the IRGC, the Hezbollah operatives that infiltrate Canada, and join the Iranian refugees with asylum as their cover. They infiltrate through the northern border. And that's how they get to Portland, Oregon. No, Portland. No, wait. Seattle, Washington, Portland, and Minnesota. Right? And we got LA, Vegas, and Salt Lake City covered with the San Diego vector, the Mandalay Bay vector. So this is how they move this, right? With these vectors, absolutely, cuss. So this is a concerted effort inside the United States. Oh, really? What's going on, Steve? Exactly, cuz. So basically, right? And we're within the frequentistic domain. So in other words, we look at vectors all the way out to Asia and all the way out to the North African Middle Eastern region. We look at the Iranian microcontrollers. Okay. So basically, we look and see how Iran moves through the domain. Let's look at the 2011 assassination attempt from the U.S.-Mexican border by Soleimani, Quds Force, and the Iranian-American Mansour Abashur, right? Bribing a Mexican drug cartel member with $100,000 to go in and whack a Saudi ambassador to the United States. But the problem was, JM, it's a war zone, right? Exactly, Greenwood. It looks like a war zone, right? We've been infiltrated. They've infiltrated 22 plus states. And this is basically because of absolutely, Greenwood, this is basically because of a lot of the democratic Badi Imams, exactly. Badi Imams, exactly. And we whack Soleimani, exactly, right? But think about it. How does Iran move on the North African terrain that they know, right? So the sick thing about this whole thing, Iran's small, right, compared to the United States militarily. But they know their terrain, right? Asymmetrical warfare. Tehran, Baghdad, Damascus, Lebanon, Beirut. 100,000 rockets underground, more than any NATO country underground, more than any NATO country has above ground. How did Hezbollah get those rockets? North Korea. North Korea is an expert in missile and rocket components. They've flown, thank you, Patriot, for the invites. They've flown in missile and rocket components from Sunan International Airport in North Korea over the Russian border into the Vladivostok Airport in Russia. From Air Koryo, which is the largest airliner in North Korea, to the Aeroflot, the largest airliner in the Russian Federation, transferred the missile and rocket components to the Russian airliner, took that airliner, this is a commercial airliner, and flown it over Chinese airspace into Tehran, Iran, the capital of Iran. And what does Iran do? They assemble the missile and rocket components and fly them over Marwan Air, Iranian Air, into the borders of Israel, Syria, which is where basically they move all over Iraq, right, Porky? They own it. It's a colony. It's an Iranian colony. So you don't think Hezbollah and the Mexican drug cartel are not moving all over Mexico, right, Porky? The IRGC, the Quds Force, all the way from Venezuela, Caracas. with Maduro and Tariq al-Assami. Right, Porky? So either they're flying from Caracas into Canada and they're invading America from the northern border. Well, we're going to win the battle. We're going to win the war. Right now, we're not doing Margarita Island. I mean, come on, right? This is crazy. We've been infiltrated in 22 plus states. Absolutely, Porky. That's the problem, Porky. You're 100% right. And if you look at the way the Trump administration is moving with Venezuela, they're not going to tell us. President Trump's not going to tell everybody, oh, he's just going to put sanctions on Maduro. He's not going to tell us about Margarita Island. That's classified information. Same thing with Pompeo. They're very much aware of Venezuela. Just look at Citgo. Venezuela had, I don't know what they got today because these criminals took everything from Venezuela. But at one point they were a major shareholder of Citgo, the American energy company, and they were dangling it in front of Russia. And that's when the Trump administration was going crazy with an American energy company. They were going nuts on Venezuela. Let me tell you something. The Trump administration is on it, man. They're on everything. They're very much aware of what's going on. Very much aware. But you got to understand what Trump inherited. These are the things Trump inherited. And he's there to fix them. He fixes them. They stop him. He keeps going. And you got Pelosi. It's a mess, right? But he's going to win anyway. Right? See, the thing about it is they underestimate Trump all the time. We don't, because we know how good Trump is. They don't want to believe how good he is, but we know how good Trump is. Trump is good. He's amazing. He's a genius, quite frankly. He's only doing this, for 4 years? Trump's only been president for 4 years. He's only been a public servant for 4 years. He's a billionaire before he came in. COVID, right? And that was not his fault. It would be crazy deal, right? In the debates. So let's just say we factor in, we want a landslide, but we're going to factor in the mail-in ballots, the fraud. So we're going to say we're going to say at the very least, Trump wins by like 16. The very least. We want a landslide. But let's say with all of the corruption, the graft, the robbery of the deep state between the rogue wing of the FBI and the rogue wing of the CIA, you got to figure they're going to try to steal something. They're not going to win the election. And Trump gets them. I'm telling you, you're right, Porky, you're right. And Trump gets them because there's going to be Trump coattails. So by Trump winning, whether it's a landslide or 16, we win. And as long as there's a Trump coattails, the Democrats are impeached on November 3rd, 2020. And we get rid of Pelosi and the ilk. Swarell, Nadler, Schiff. We get rid of all these criminals. That's what we want. The best, Lorraine, the best. He's in the conversation with Reagan. He's in the conversation with Lincoln. He's in the conversation with all of our great George Washington. He's in the conversation with these people. He's a great president. He don't get the credit because he's a straight talker. He's probably there's a lockdown in California, right? The National Guard is in California, right? Deal? I mean, that's going to help. I mean, the actions of Cuomo and de Blasio is not going to help the Democrats. As much as lefty people are in New York, and there's a lot of lefties, I'm not going to lie. A lot of my friends are big time. Exactly, deal, right? He has the most candor. He's the most candid, real president we ever had. I like John F. Kennedy. I did. I agree with you, Lorraine. I mean, I like John Kennedy. I did. And I think what's happened is because the Democratic Party has gone so far left, socialist, communist, the Reagan Democrats and the Kennedy Democrats have joined the Republican Party. I liked him, Porky. I did. He was he made the social changes that needed to be made, and there were some really problems in the 60s, right? That's over 50 years ago. And there were some serious social problems in the 60s. And he fixed them, right? And then from there, I agree with you, Deal. And then from there, we got, right? So, and then his fiscal side was conservative. Cut taxes, reduce the size of government. John Kennedy was a lot more conservative. They said privately he was a lot more conservative than people realized, John Kennedy. I like John Kennedy. He was a tough guy. I mean, nobody's perfect, right? But I believe his heart was in the right place, and he was a lot more conservative than people give him credit. He wanted a strong defense. He was for the space exploration. Well, Greenwood, it's like anything else. It's like the hit. It's like this hit here, right? This hit on our infrastructure. Everybody has to win for this to happen, right? And it did happen. Trump is going to win when it counts. November 3rd, 2020, right? But right now, they got the human bioweapon in here that reduced the economy. Trump is not going on rallies because of that. They're slowing Trump down, right? But he'll get it. He'll get it going again, right, Deal? And then you got this invasion, right? This infiltration, and it starts all the way out from East Asia, West Asia, Iran, Moscow, and to the next Syria, Caracas, Venezuela, Margarita Island. This is crazy. And you got the Democrats want it because they don't want Trump to get reelected. He'll be back. Let me tell you something. What I love about Trump, a lot of things. He's an animal. He's a savage. He's a fighter. When Trump's in, he's like in a war. I believe he's General Patton reincarnated, quite frankly. I really do. When he's in a war, he goes into his cocoon. He gets all his information, and he comes out guns blazing. Trump is an amazing leader. He's full of energy. He believes in what he's doing. Is what I love about Trump. Actually believes in what he's doing. He believes in American exceptionalism. He believes in the American economy. He believes in the American energy sector. He believes in the American worker. I'm telling you, Greenwood, he's certainly up there as the best ever. Absolutely. We had some great presidents, and he's one of them. Absolutely. I can't wait to vote for him November 3rd, 2020. Absolutely, boy. So we're looking at over here now, right? 20 states, by just beating Hillary Clinton, right, Greenwood? By just stopping Hillary, the Obama-Clinton crime family machine. And now they're so bad, they're trying to resurrect it. And there's rumor that Hillary Clinton's going to be the vice president. I heard that she lost the appeal and she's going to have to testify. I forgot maybe over her emails. I'm not sure. Oh my God. If they almost got away with it. Hillary got 200 electoral emails, right? Hillary got 200 electoral votes. I'm not a Bernie Sanders. He's a moron politician who doesn't believe in what he's doing. Hillary lost the appeal, Porky. She's got to testify over her emails. So we have, it's like Al-Qaeda, the Al-Qaeda network. You see, because these kids don't understand. Yeah, they might make her, there's a chance. I think there's a better than a good chance that she's the VP. Who's 25 point? Who's the, right? It's crazy, Porky, right? Because people don't realize, right? We talk about the frequentistic domain, right? Al Qaeda in America was here waiting for the 9/11 hijackers with those vectors. See, these kids don't understand, Porky. Al Qaeda in UK, Abu Yahya al-Libi, Abu Hamza Masri were part of the MI5, MI6 in UK, and they defrauded the fraudsters, defrauded the UK taxpayers with hundreds, with billions of dollars, and they funneled tens of millions of dollars, almost hundreds of millions of dollars, to the Al Qaeda in the UK. You got Al Qaeda in Libya. Look what Obama. So you got Al Qaeda in the UK, you got Al Qaeda in the United States, and you got Al Qaeda in Libya. So why can't you have Black Lives Matter and Antifa in the United States? They lost, Porky. Oh my God, did they lose? Weak leadership. We have weak leadership here. Besides our great President Donald Trump and some of our Republican colleagues like Ron DeSantis and the like of that level, he's another great governor. We have some Democratic governors and Democratic mayors that are very bad for this country and our infrastructure. And it's shown in this Black Lives Matter, Antifa infiltration. And you got the George Soros's Open Society that's working with the Islamic Republic of Iran, who's working with the Black Lives Matter. Antifa's on the U.S.-Mexican border with the Mexican drug cartel, Hezbollah. So why can't those operatives that are on the U.S.-Mexican border use that same infrastructure that's been used since the 2000s, that the Mexican drug cartel's using today to smuggle the drugs from the poppy fields of Mexico to the streets of New York? Absolutely, Porky. Once they've infiltrated us, look at the Holy Land Foundation trial. That's why the kids that were in the room, they leave because they can't deal with it. Look at the Holy Land Foundation trial. The FBI's got something. The FBI, they've done a lot more good than bad for this country. Unfortunately, because of the undermanned intelligence agencies, right? And there's no real reward in this world of intelligence because it's very on the DL. No pay, and you got leaders in the leadership roles, the politicians that throw them under the bus a lot of times, like the George Tenets, the last of the real deal intelligence officers. After George Tenet, and I like General Petraeus, after those two cats, you can have the rest of them. The John Brennans, the Michael Morells, the Leon Panettas. You can have those rats, right? They're with the Clinton, the John Deutsch, right? George Tenet was the last of the Mohicans. And he was right. Greenwood, she's a Qatari asset. She's the face of the DNC. She's the CAIR, the Council of American Islamic Relations. That's a Hamas, Palestinian branch of Muslim Brotherhood. So basically, what we're looking at over here is so you got basically the infrastructure that was here since 99, 2000, and even before, because we had the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, right? Omar Abdel Rahman, Ramzi Youssef, Abu Alima, Mohammed Salah. I mean, we had infiltration in 93 So Omar Abdul Rahman, the blind sheik, was the 93 World Trade Center bombing Iman. Anwar al-Awlaki was the 9/11 Iman. Al Qaeda was here already, is what I'm trying to say. The infiltration is here. The borders are open. It's in the Quran, Porky, right? And you reminded me, Porky. Listen to this. And I'm gonna leave off with this thing that we found. I found this. I blogged it. Oh yeah. I blogged it. Right? In Atlanta. This is what I mean. This is stealthy stuff, right? Atlanta. This is by Robert Spencer from Jihad Watch. Muslim cleric says Muslims use violence to take over the world as taught in the Quran, Porky. It's in the Quran. He says, this guy, Salam Ahmed, says, he said, on May 29, 2020, a Friday sermon at Atlanta Islamic scholar Salman Ahmad, he uploaded this on a Facebook page. And he reacted to the protests following the death of George Floyd. He said he will continue talking about revolution until the Muslims achieve having the world look like Allah would have it. He's saying that not necessarily advocate. He's not an advocate, but listen to what he says. He says he's not an advocate of violence, which is not true, right? The Salafist jihad is just that. Absolutely, Porky. He goes on to say that he elaborated that Muslims are not pacifists and that in revolutions they should follow the Quranic examples of Muhammad, who employed destruction and violence against polytheism and false worship. He added, this is the model that Muslims use when they take over the world. This is a Muslim cleric in Atlanta, Georgia. And I could name two others off the top of my head, one in Syracuse in Iman, talking about this is the land of the infidels, Greenwood. He's living in the land of the infidels. And the COVID is God's way of purging the world of the infidels, basically is what he was saying. As we had a New York Muslim Iman, a New York Muslim Brotherhood Iman, calling Egyptian Muslims to go into the Sisi government and spread the COVID. Greenwood, this is how crazy. So you can't tell me that the radical Islamic movement, the global jihadi movement, you put the drugs there. You got Mexican drug cartel, U.S.-Mexican border. How are the protesters where you're from? Well, like we've been saying, Black Lives Matter, right? It's crazy, Porky, right? Absolutely, King Kirby, the vectors, right? Black Lives Matter have been calling for cop slaying for the last 10 years, since 2010, 29, when Obama was president, right? When the Obama-Clinton crime family was in power, they were killing cops with like what they did in Dallas, right? They shot 4 cops in St. Louis. That's one vector. Those are vectors there. Then plus their rapport with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The activists from the Black Lives Matter have actually gone, and one in Vegas. There you go, Monarch. And they've actually gone to Iran in what they call the New Horizons Conference, Police Brutality United States Conference inside of Iran. Black Lives Matter was there, activists. They left that conference and came back to America. So it's like you know what it's like? It's like the Somali refugees, almost like it. The Somali refugees, they enter America, then they leave, they go out to Somalia, they fight in the revolutions in Somalia and come back, all radicalized. Black Lives Matter goes out to Iran, gets all radicalized, and comes back over here, and look what you got. Antifa goes to the U.S.-Mexican border to get weapons, and you got the Black Lives Matter and Antifa working together in these 22 states. And thank you, and the Democratic leadership knows this on the ground. They let Black Lives Matter and Antifa do their bidding. Fox now, right? Right, Porky. Oh, yes, they are. Oh, yes, they are. Oh, yes, they are. Absolutely. They're working together. They're working together. It's like the Sunni and the Shiites. People tell me the Sunnis not working with the Shiites. It's not true. That's the You're right. Right. You're probably right. That's great. Greenwood, that's great. Exactly. I agree with that, Alan. That's the whole point. But that's like you telling me, Alan, that the Sunni Muslims are not working with the Shiite Muslims. And I just point to the Iranian Global Terror Network. They say the Sunnis hate the Shiites. They hate each other. Then I point to the Iranian Global Terror Network, and that's not true. Because the Iranian Global Terror Network has an Afghan Taliban Iran nexus, has a Hamas Iran nexus, has an Al Qaeda Iran nexus, has a Muslim Brotherhood Iran nexus. I mean, there's a Sunni Shiite nexus in the Iranian Global Terror Network. Whether they're bribing, whether they're materially supporting these terror cells throughout the world with money, weapons, and training, or they're actually pulling the trigger. Exactly, Alan, exactly. They used tear gas in Orlando? Exactly, Alan, I agree with you. They used tear gas in Orlando, Florida? Wow. Hey, listen. Wow, it got that bad down there, huh? Wow. That's crazy. It's crazy, Porky. Wow, right now? Wow. It's gotten that bad where they had to use tear gas, huh? It's crazy. Hey, they use tear gas and rubber bullets, right? Anything they got to do it's because, we got to do what we got to do, right? Hey, DeSantis called in the National Guard into Tampa like 3 days ago. DeSantis is no joke. He's no joke, that guy. That guy's no joke. I like him. DeSantis don't play. DeSantis don't play. Porky, he's no joke. That guy don't play. I like him. I wish we had all governors and mayors like him. If the Democrats were Kennedy, if the Democrats were Kennedy Democrats and Reagan Democrats, we wouldn't have a problem. But because the Democrats are like the Clintons and the Obamas, and they're even more left than them. You got the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens. These are rats. These are criminals. Oh my God, Monarch, it would be ridiculous. I'm telling you, Porky, he's no joke, man. DeSantis is no joke. DeSantis is no joke. Did you hear what happened, Porky? I'm telling you. I didn't see that. Biden took a knee. Oh, he's a cooch, Greenwood. And I can't believe these police officers taking a knee. And I tell you the truth. It's unbelievable, right? But if these protesters took a knee, instead of rioting, instead of being rioters, if they took a knee and left, hey, why are the police taking a knee with them? Because you got four, I'm telling you, Porky, right? You got four whack job police officers, right? There you go, Greenwood. You're right. What's up, Bensonhurst? You're right. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. Porky, it's crazy. Right? It's crazy, bro. Yeah, but why take the knee? You got four whack job police officers, right, Porky? So they reflect the entire police forces in the country, because that guy's got him down on the ground. He's telling him he can't breathe, and you keep the guy on the ground. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. Amateur night. The amateurs with a mask on. He's ridiculous, right, Porky? Biden is ridiculous. Telling you, Greenwood. Then the three for $20, right? A counterfeit. It's not like the guy he had a gun and he stole the gun. Like with Trayvon Martin, he stole the gun, right? If I remember correctly, I don't remember everything, but I know it was a struggle with the police officer, and I think Trayvon Martin stole the gun. I think something like that. So let's say he resisted arrest, George Floyd, and he stole the guy's gun, right? And then I would get why there was a struggle and somebody got killed. But if this guy's forging counterfeit 20, right, Porky, and he doesn't seem to be resisting arrest, why do you got this guy on the ground with your knee in his neck? And you got three of the morons watching, not telling the guy, why don't you just put this guy in the car? We're going to kill him. And that's what they did. The stupidest thing I've ever seen. They're not the example of all the police in this country. I'm sorry. And the numbers don't reflect it. It's just that we have a mainstream media that wants to purport this narrative so they can sell newspapers and sell clicks on the internet and sell advertising dollars. Amateur hour. Absolutely, Greenwood. Yeah, and it's one thing, and the way they handle it, right, Porky? Now, if de Blasio and Cuomo were true leaders, they'd say, listen, what should they have done? They should have gotten a space like Union Square in Manhattan. Say, all protesters go here. You want to protest? You go here. You leave, you don't come back. You got a curfew between 6 and 6 p.m. You're off the streets after 6 p.m. If you're on the streets after 6 p.m. protesting, you're arrested. That's how you protect the people that are protesting peacefully and the people that are not involved in this ridiculous stuff and just want to get on with their lives. So what about the people, not just the white people, but what about the non-white people that are doing this as well, that are not doing it, that are not involved with these ridiculous protests, that end up being rioting? This thing hasn't been protests for days. It's been rioting, if anybody wants to be honest and real, right? Why not de Blasio talk to the leaders of the community and say, listen, you're not going to be roaming the city looking to loiter and loot from the businesses. If you want to protest, Union Square is your area. You could scream, you could get a megaphone and protest from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The police will be on the perimeter. If you leave, you can't get back in. And at 6 p.m., you're off the streets of Manhattan. If we find you on the streets, you get arrested. This way you can have If people want to protest peacefully, they go to Union Square, they scream till the cows come home, they get the megaphone, and they could talk about how they feel, whatever they feel, right? That takes care of that. And then you're taking care of the people that are there so you're protecting the protesters that are there peacefully. And then what about the people that are not protesting? And they're not just white people. There's a lot, not everybody that are non-white that have been protesting. Right? And the rioters are Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Antifa is mostly white boys. So this is ridiculous. People are conjuring up these racial, this is ridiculous. People, this is ridiculous. Right, Porky? This is absolutely ridiculous. But instead, they don't want to show any leadership. Cuomo should have stepped in, but he's another moron, right? You're right, Greenwood, and maybe we will. Maybe the Trump team will, right, Porky? Maybe William Barr will. Because de Blasio could have blunted this thing and said, listen, right? Could have met with the organizers of this thing. And he would have, see, what they should have done was, right? If they would have quarantined the peaceful protesters, that would have enabled them to utilize the rest of the police force and in a stealthy way, find out the real perpetrators behind Black Lives Matter and Antifa on what they're really planning to do with the city. And they would have really, really, in a stealthy way, they could have had the intelligence operatives, the plainclothes cops, sniff out the Black Lives Matter Antifa moves inside the city. You're right. I agree. And like the Sunni and the Shiites work together for a common cause against America, against Israel, so does Antifa and Black Lives Matter. The leaders of Antifa and Black Lives Matter work together. They probably do, Greenwood, right? Come on. They had the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agent, on the border of the U.S.-Mexican border, involved in the 2011 assassination attempt on the Saudi ambassador to the United States with Soleimani and the Quds Force and the Iranian American Mansour Abbasur, right? He bribed a Mexican drug cartel member, and he was a drug enforcement agent. That's how they busted him on the U.S.-Mexican border. So you can't tell me that the federales don't have informants inside the Antifa and inside of Black Lives Matter. Of course they do. Of course they do. They know Black Lives Matter has been to Iran. You better believe it. Of course they do. But it's because of the politicians. And that's why you got this corruption inside the intelligence agencies. Because the politicians throw them under the bus. But now they got power now. Oh, the Sandinista mess with Sandinistas, forget about it, bro. Or Paris, Tennessee for trials I'm talking about. The Sandinistas, I haven't started doing research with the Sandinistas and Gaddafi. I wonder how deep de Blasio was involved with the Sandinistas. I know he was over there in Nicaragua. I wonder how deep he was involved. There you go, Greenwood. I believe that. See, I believe that. You know? I believe that. And that Project Veritas, too, they claim to have infiltrated a Antifa terror cell, too, with Black Lives Matter, conceivably. I think with Black Lives Matter as well. De Blasio's a joke. I just wonder how deeply he's involved with the Sandinista, because he claims to be a Sandinista. You ever hear his Spanish, bro? Porky? You ever hear his Spanish? It's like off the hook. His Spanish is as good as John Brennan's Arabic. Truthfully, Porky. His Espanol. There you go, Cash. I'm telling you, Porky. De Blasio's Espanol is like John Brennan's Arabic. You ever hear John Brennan's Arabic? Oh my God, you would think that he's an Islamist. Habla muy bien, absolutely. His Espanol is off the hook. It's like he was living there. It's perfect, right, Porky? He's like he's been there. He's involved. He was involved in Nicaragua, bro. He was involved with Nicaragua. I wouldn't be surprised if he knew Daniel Ortega, all right? I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, Porky, I did a little, I haven't gotten anything yet. De Blasio's involvement in Nicaragua and how deep he goes. I wouldn't be surprised if de Blasio, when he was young, he knew Barack Hussein Obama. They knew each other. Like I believe Michelle Obama knew Barack Obama when he was young as well. And their so-called marriage is perfect for them. Perfect. It's the cover. Those kids are the cover for the deep state's moves. I'm telling you, Porky, I don't know for a fact. Michael Michelle, right, Greenwood? I'm telling you, I don't know for a fact. I'm telling you, Terry. Michael Michelle Obama, that's fake. That's not a chick. New vectors, right, Porky? The cover, right? That's how the deep state moves. Look at Monica Witt and Lisa Page. They're the same person. I'm telling you, Porky, they're the same person. Iranian spies inside the FBI. Peter Strzok's father was stationed in Iran. He lived in Iran. Lisa Page, her mother is Iranian. Valerie Jarrett, her girl, Michelle Michael. Yeah. Absolutely, Porky. Michelle Michael's girl is Valerie Jarrett. I'm telling you, man. We continue to build vectors. I'm telling you. This thing with Gaddafi and the Sandinistas really, like, I was like blown away. I'm telling you, man. You got Gaddafi. You got Malik Obama, who's dirty. Malik Obama is dirty, okay? Malik Obama is dirty. He's got two passports. He's got two citizenships, United States and Kenya, right? He was best friends with Gaddafi. He was begging Obama not to whack Gaddafi. Begging Obama not to whack Gaddafi. He's on a bank account with Omar al-Bashir, the Islamic Dawan organization. We're friends, right? That's right, Porky. Castro and Gaddafi were like best friends. That's why Obama loved Castro. Malik Obama and Gaddafi, best friends, Porky, right? Malik Obama was in Obama's wedding. He was Obama's best man. In Malik Obama's weddings, Obama was his best man. So there's something over here, right? You got Malik Obama with Gaddafi. Gaddafi's tight with Castro and Ortega. Daniel Ortega. This is crazy, bro. This is crazy. Oh my God, Porky. He was begging. Malik Obama was begging Barack Hussein Obama not to whack Gaddafi. Gaddafi said, listen, I'm just going to go in exile. Gaddafi was begging to be left alone. He said, I'll go in exile. They said, no. You're getting what? They told him, they're going to whack him. And if they didn't send NATO, they never would have got him. But when NATO was involved with England and France, it was a wrap. Exactly, Porky. And we talked about this. Gaddafi had the goods, and he talked. He knew Obama. He knew a lot about Barack Hussein Obama. Exactly, Porky. He had the goods on Barack. So under the guise of, we got to get rid of Gaddafi. That's why they made such a big deal. And also, too, the debacle of the 20,000 man pads. Because think about it. Before the man pads, before they gave the Islamists the man pads, it was an easy go for the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, the United States, to go into these regions where we don't know the terrain. It wasn't hard for us, right? But once they gave them the man pads, that put the movement of Al-Qaeda in Libya and the Iranian global jihadi movement